Welcome to the WalterFootball.com podcast. This is episode 309. We're doing our Week 16 NFL picks against the spread. I'm joined once again by Jacob Kamiker from the Sporting News. Jacob, how are you and how's your Week 15?
I'm doing pretty good. My Week 15 was weird. I started the week really well. I was like 2-0-1 after the standalone Thursday and the two Saturday games. So I came into Sunday and I'm like, all right, yeah, let's like run the table. Let's get a double-digit win week. Didn't go as planned, but I still finished 7-7-2. So I had two pushes, which is I've had 5 all year, so having 2 in 1 week is unusual. So that basically equals a 500 week. It's the same as an 8-8 week. So I was fine with that. The big win of the week, though, was we found a line error in the Steelers game for Ben Roethlisberger's passing yards over 28.5. So I managed to bet that. It was significantly more stressful than I thought it was going to be because he didn't even have it at halftime. And then we got it, and they decided to pay the ticket because I didn't bet an absurd amount of money on it. So thanks to Bovada for honoring that ticket. And I promise I won't do that a ton. I just happened to stumble upon it. So yeah, that helped to salvage a winning week for me monetarily. So that was pretty nice overall.
Yeah, that was it was stressful at halftime because he had 18 passing yards at halftime, and then I was going to text you as I told you before we started recording, and I didn't want to jinx it because I'm like, what if Roethlisberger is hurt and doesn't come out, and we're gonna lose the under 28? It would be like one of the worst beats of all time, I feel like, and we would have been like the only people to know about it too, which is kind of the crazy thing. Yeah, I had a winning week overall, like not overall with the picks, but money wise, it was like plus 210, plus 2.1 units. It could have been a much better week. The Patriots, they were my top pick of the week, and they lost. It was so frustrating. They allowed 260 rushing yards. They didn't seem to remember how to tackle. The Dolphins looked like they had Barry Sanders and Emmitt Smith on their roster, just like running past the New England defenders. I know Stephon Gilmore got hurt in the second quarter, and that definitely derailed the Patriots, but they still couldn't tackle, and that was so frustrating. Especially like Bill Belichick having extra time to prepare for a rookie quarterback missing his top 4 receivers. Like you think the Patriots would win that one, and they didn't, and so that was frustrating. But other than that, I had a good week, and definitely thanks to you for pointing out the Roethlisberger the passing guard prop.
Oh yeah, no problem. I had to sanity check it to be sure I wasn't like reading the wrong thing. So every so often those line errors come up, and I'm not someone who goes looking for them. I was just looking at game props and happened to see that one. So when you see it, try to take advantage of it. If they avoided the wager, it would have been fine. Like, they have the right to do that, but I appreciate that they honored it. And like I said, it was more stressful than I thought it was going to be. So maybe they were like, yeah, these guys had to sweat out the most ridiculous wager of all time, so we'll let them have it.
Yeah, right. If that went under, like they charged us and they weren't going to honor it, like that would have been bad. But it was cool that they did. One more thing with sort of props. So Lamont saying the Jets and the Bengals both won. I saw on Twitter that if you bet $100 on a money line parlay between the Jets and the Bengals, $100, you would have won, I think, like $1.6 million or $1.3 million. Like, imagine just doing that. It kind of makes you think, like, and now if you do that going forward, you're never going to win. Like, you're going to lose a ton of money. So it's like a once in a lifetime thing. I don't know if anyone did it, but congratulations if you did. So yeah, we're going to get into our Week 16 picks. There's a game on Christmas Day, and then 3 games on Saturday. The divorce package, as I like to call it, and I think you had a better nickname for it, maybe. So we'll get to that in a second. But before we do, please hit subscribe or the like button if you're watching on YouTube, or share this video with someone who likes football. That would mean a lot to us to help spread the show and really help us out. So so let's get into the Christmas Day game. So it's the Vikings at the Saints. The sign opened up Saints -8.5. It's down to 7. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, so I like the Saints in this one. We're getting a little bit of line value here at 7, and I think that the Vikings are going to be demoralized after losing to the Bears. They're essentially eliminated from the playoff race, not mathematically, but all it's going to take is one Arizona win or one of like this. There are many combinations that will get them eliminated pretty much immediately. So I don't think they're going to be motivated for this one. They know that they're pretty much done for the year. And I think that the Saints, they're going to feel desperate now because they've lost 2 games in a row. They got surprised by the Eagles. They didn't show up right away against the Chiefs, and that really ended up costing them. They made the comeback and ended up that's what got me my second push because I had them at -3 or +3 rather against the Chiefs. So that ended up working out well. But part of what I think happened in that game was Drew Brees was in his first game back from injury, and it took him a while to get going. So I think that as the game went along, he got better, and he was playing without a lot of weapons. Like, he does not have a lot of receivers right now, which is a little bit of a concern for me. But given how bad the Vikings have been against receivers this year, they've given up the second most receiving touchdowns to receivers this year, and they've given up a ton of yardage to them. I don't think he'll have as much trouble throwing on the Vikings as he normally would without his top receivers. Plus, I think Alvin Kamara will be more involved in the game plan. And I just don't think that the Vikings are going to show up at this point. So I'll take 7 because we're getting the key number of 7 now because of that line move. And I'm not like overly confident in this one. I'll probably put a unit on it. I just think that the Saints, the motivation favors them heavily because they got to get off the schneid here. They got to stop losing, and they got to win if they don't want to end up, in a wild card spot, which is a possibility for them. It's possible, albeit unlikely, that they could fall as far as the 7th seed, I believe. Actually, my math, I can't remember. My math, I think, is off on that. I think I'm at 6th seed there, but there are a lot of possible combinations for them there. So they got to win and try to, get back to that. All right, we're going to be the number 2 seed probably with the Packers out in front. So, I'm going to be on the Saints here.
Yeah, it's not out of the question that they'll lose the division because they have to lose both and Tampa has to win both. But Tampa has 2 easy games. And here, if the Saints lose this game, they get Carolina next week. And, you can't really take any game for granted. So Carolina played them close the first time. Carolina's going to be at home. So it is possible that they'll lose. So they have to win this game. I think they're going to be more motivated than the Vikings. Like you said, the Saints have to rebound off a loss, whereas the Vikings, like you mentioned, they were basically eliminated from the playoffs. And I found that once teams are eliminated from the playoffs, like not mathematically, but practically, they tend to be flat for the first game because there's just no motivation. So I think you're on the right side with the Saints. My only question is if Eric Kendricks is going to play. His absence the past 2 weeks has been enormous. The Vikings were missing 6 starters on defense before he got hurt. And he's one of the best linebackers in the NFL. And he's kind of like the glue that held everything together. But without him, they look so lost. They can't do anything right. They couldn't stop Mitchell Trubisky or David Montgomery. If he's out again, the Saints are going to score so easily, and they're going to win this game in a blowout. If he's back, I could see the Vikings hanging around and maybe getting a backdoor cover. So either way, I'm going to be on the Saints, but the unit count depends on Kendricks' status.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. This is always the time of year, too, where if I'm running an NFL team, my question is always if a guy's coming back from injury and he's not quite 100%, why would you risk playing him? So, maybe Kendricks is on track to be 100% this week. In that case, if he wants to play, let him play. There's obviously incentives in his contract and everything, and the defense is better and competitive without him there, or with him on the field, rather. But, I always err on the side of caution, so it wouldn't surprise me if, Mike Zimmer knows, all right, I'm still going to be coaching here next year. Maybe I just shut down Eric Kendricks because he's at 80% right now. So that'll definitely be something to watch. I think that's going to be the case in a lot of games where there's just going to be some injury questions, and it's going to be all right, we got to just know, are they going to shut their guys down, or are they just going to keep playing? Because that's always the number one thing for the last 2 weeks of the season for teams that are virtually eliminated.
Yeah, that's kind of what the Saints are doing with Michael Thomas. Not that they're eliminated or anything, but they want him healthy for the playoffs. So they've decided to shut him down. And then I think it's interesting that there are a few other teams that are not shutting their players down, like the Panthers with Christian McCaffrey, the Falcons with Julio Jones, the Bengals with Joe Mixon. All these guys could easily just sit out the final couple of games, but all those teams are holding out hope that they'll play. So we don't know any of their statuses yet. So it'll be interesting to see if they're going to play or not. And also maybe Kenny Golladay, we can include him. So the first game of the Saturday slate, as I like to call it, the divorce package, the Buccaneers at the Lions. This line has been a Buccaneers -8, and it's gone up to 9.5. So what do you think about this game? And give us your name for the alternative name for the divorce package.
So alternatively, the divorce package is known as the Bachelor's Paradise because I work Sundays during the season, but on Saturdays I don't have nearly as much work to do, so I can just kick back and watch the game. So it's kind of a paradise for me because I don't have to worry. I can just focus on the games and hang out. But yeah, so gotta love that Saturday football. And I'm gonna be on Tampa Bay here. I just think the Lions are cooked. I mean, we saw how they looked against the Titans. Like, credit Matthew Stafford for playing through that painful rib injury, but this defense there's nothing there. Like, there's no motivation for them. They're not playing well. They're missing some key players on that side of the ball. And then you look at offense with Stafford banged up. He's getting the ball to his playmakers and everything, but no Kenny Golladay is a big deal. It has been this year for the Lions. And, it's been he might try to play this week since week 8. That's the last time he played. There's no way he's coming back at this point. Not for this year, not with the coaching staff that's not going to be here next year. I think a lot of the Lions players probably will be checked out in this game. You don't even have the Matt Patricia's here and he's facing Tom Brady, who used to be on his team. Like, that angle is completely gone too. So I think the Tampa Bay is going to come out after what happened against the Falcons last week. They had the comeback, and I think that was a good building moment for them. I just think that they're going to throw all over Detroit, run all over them too, and just really make this one a blowout. I just don't see what reason Detroit would have to try in this one. And meanwhile, Tampa might be spelling blood in the water with 2 Saints losses in a row. And, you alluded to it. It's an outside chance, but if the Bucs win their 2 games, they can face the Saints. And if not, I think they're in the driver's seat for the 5th seed in the NFC playoffs. So that would get them a date with either Washington or New York, which I think they would probably rather face than either the Rams or the Seahawks. But yeah, so I think Tampa Bay is going to be motivated to win this one. So I'm going to be on them here a unit or two, I think.
Yeah, for sure. You definitely want the 5th seed to play the 4th seed in the NFC. Like, that's such a big advantage. It's almost like a bye. Although, like, there were 2 divisional winners in the past. I think the past couple of 15 years or 10 years or so, where like we kind of questioned whether or not they deserved to be in the playoffs, and like both those teams ended up winning in the first round. So like nothing's a given, I guess. And the way the Buccaneers played in the first half against the Falcons, like you can't really say that they're going to have an easy win. But obviously, you definitely want to play one of the NFC East teams in the first round. So yeah, they're definitely going to have something to play for, even if the Saints win and they can't win the division. And I think you're right. Like, the Lions don't really have much to play for. This is not a divisional game, so it's not like this is a big rivalry game for them. Like, kind of like the Bengals, they just like tried super hard against the Steelers because they wanted to beat them so badly. Like, there's no incentive here for the Lions. I think instead, like, they might be focused next week. If the Vikings are somehow still alive, like, maybe they can knock out the Vikings, and that's kind of a bigger game for them. But I think they had their big game a couple weeks ago when they played the Packers, and that was kind of their Super Bowl, and they ended up losing. Now they're kind of done. They're going through the motions, and Stafford got hurt. He got hurt in the rib area in the fourth quarter last week, and the Lions are just down so many players. They're down 3 of their top 4 cornerbacks. They're down 2 defensive linemen. They're down 3 offensive linemen potentially. I just don't know how they're going to compete with the Buccaneers. So I think the Buccaneers are going to win and cover. This line is just so high. There's no value here. So I don't know if I'm going to bet this game, but I think Tampa is definitely the right side.
Yeah, no, the high line does give me a little bit of pause, which is why I'm only on for 1 or 2 units. If this was a 7 or something, I'd be all over the Buccaneers at that. But yeah, I think you're dead right. The Lions are just so beat up. And the other thing is, I think Tampa Bay's pass rush is going to be able to get Matthew Stafford. And we saw him earlier in the year when he was dealing with an injury. And, he was kind of more afraid to move because he didn't want to get hit on the move. So at times, if the pass rush is coming down on him, he just kind of would go down with it. So I could see that happening here. The Titans last week weren't able to get any pass rush because they're not a very good defensive team. I know the Buccaneers have had problems, especially in their secondary, but they still have a lot of talent on that side of the ball. So I think that they're going to pull this one out. But you're right that the line value here is not great.
Yeah. Happy holidays to your dad. He just commented there. So that's definitely cool. Yeah. Happy holidays to everyone watching this. Yeah, too big of a number for the Bucks. I agree, but I really don't see how the Lions to stay with it. We had a question here. What happens to the law of NFL games being played on Friday? So that's actually a real law. Like the NFL can't schedule games on Friday due to high school rules, but there is no high school football anymore right now because this high school season's over. And they can also apply for special exemptions, and like holidays are one of those special exemptions. So that's definitely fine.
I did not know that was a law, so I learned something new every week.
It's so weird. Like they have Thursday football and then they don't have Saturday because college, but they have Saturday late in the year. But like they never have Friday football unless it's a weird thing. But it's actually a law. Like they want to protect the sanctity of high school football. It's very strange, but that is actually a law. All right, the middle of the Saturday games, 49ers at the Cardinals. The sign opened up Cardinals -5. It went down to 3.5. There was sharp money on San Francisco, and then it popped up to 4.5. There's a ton of public money on Arizona, so it's a very public versus sharp kind of game. So who do you like here?
So I am with the public here, or at least I was. I'm a little torn on this game now because one of the big reasons that I was in on this game was Nick Mullins has just played awful recently and has committed so many turnovers. Like you said, 7 games in a row with the turnover, I think. And the 49ers turned the ball over 29 times this year, second most to only the Denver Broncos. But now Mullins is out for the rest of the year with an elbow injury. So we might see CJ Beathard start if Jimmy Garoppolo can't get back. And, Beathard isn't great, but I thought he played better than Mullins in limited action this year. So that might have just been some garbage time performance in a game that didn't really matter as much, but I'm at least a little bit giving pause to this number with Beathard in. That said, I still look at the Cardinals and I think that their offense is just clicking. Kyler Murray's healthy and he's playing better right now than he was when his shoulder was bugging him or whatever else was wrong. So I think that his performance is huge. Their defense has been getting a ton of pressure too. Hassan Reddick's really coming on. Dennis Gardeck, who I hadn't heard of until this season, had a couple sacks of Jalen Hurts last week. So he's been doing well every time I see them on. So I think they have some pieces on defense to get to the 49ers quarterback, and Raheem Mostert's also out for the year. And the 49ers seem to be one of those teams that are shutting down any key players with injuries and just rolling with whatever they have. So I can see San Francisco not being willing to really compete in this game. But at the same time, this is a divisional opponent. And with that new starter, if Beathard just doesn't turn the ball over, I could easily see this being a field goal game. So I'm going to still tentatively be on the Cardinals. But my unit count on this one right now is 0. And unless I see a lot more injuries on the 49ers side, I'm going to probably not bet this one.
Yeah, I actually like San Francisco quite a bit, and I know that like everyone is betting on Arizona here. Like it's kind of crazy, except for the Sharps. I think that the 49ers should be able to run the ball in Arizona. Like the Cardinals aren't that good against the run, and the 49ers can establish a rushing attack, and I think they can control the clock. And as long as Beathard doesn't force like any bad passes like Mullins has, like they should be able to keep this game close. And I think it's going to be a field goal game. I feel like San Francisco's kind of, I think people have forgotten like how good they can be. You know, they beat the Rams in Los Angeles with Mullins as the starting quarterback. The past couple games they've lost. So like, yeah, they lost to the Bills, which is understandable. Like the Bills are one of the best teams in the NFL. And then they lost to the Redskins in kind of a game where the Washington defensive line dominated. And then last week they committed 4 turnovers. And despite the 4 turnovers, they almost won. Like it was a tie game and they had the ball over midfield and they could have won that game. They outgained Dallas by about 200 yards in that game. So they were definitely the better team. And I think that Arizona, like, there's 2 things going against Arizona here that I don't like. I really don't like for them. Like one, I think they might overlook the 49ers because they have to play the Rams next week and they're coming off a big win at home, like at the last second. So they could be flat against San Francisco. And the second thing is, this is something I've tracked. So like this is not an official stat or anything. This is just something I tracked. So I might have missed a few games here and there. But ever since I've been handicapping games on my site, like for 21 years now, in week 16 and 17, if there's a team that needs to win and they're playing a team that's eliminated from the playoffs, those teams are 58 and 93 against the spread. I used to call it the Aurora Snowmo effect. Maybe I can still do that. But I think that like these teams like tend to choke in the clutch. And the teams that don't have anything to play for kind of like, hey, let's try to knock off this team. And I think that could be the 49ers goal here. Like the 49ers lost to Arizona in week 1 at home. They could be looking for revenge, kind of like the Cardinals kind of derailed their season sort of. So I think that the Niners are, I think they're going to be more motivated than Arizona in this game, despite Arizona needing to win. So that's why I like the 49ers. It wouldn't surprise me if they pulled the upset, but I think it's going to be a field goal game either way.
Yeah, I like your argument there. And like I said, like I was on Arizona bigger when I thought it was going to be Nick Mullins. So once I see the injury report, I could switch sides. Like if the 49ers are healthier than I think they're going to be, then maybe I'll go opposite the public and with the Sharps in this one. I don't think I'm quite willing to do that yet, just because I like the way Kyler Murray's been playing. But the Aurora Snowmo effect is definitely real, because we always see that it's like, oh, they have to win this game and they're trailing in the fourth quarter. So if it does end up being that kind of game, we're getting 4.5, so we're getting key number 3, and 4 is less of a key number as we've talked about before, but it's still, if you're down 3 late and score a game-winning touchdown and get up to 4 and the spread's 4.5, you still don't cover. So, that one will be one I think about more as Saturday approaches, but 49ers injury report will be the most interesting one to watch of the early 4, I think.
Yeah, this is something I first noticed. I forget what year it was. It was like maybe 2005 or 6. And like in week 17, there were like 4 teams that needed to win to make the playoffs. And like if team A lost, team B would get in. If team B lost, if team B and A lost, team C would get in, and so forth. Like all those teams lost. And because all those teams lost, team A ended up getting in, even though they lost. So like that's kind of like, that kind of made me think like, hey, wait a second, maybe these teams that need to win, like they usually don't. And I forget who said it. It was like a famous NFL handicapper. I think it might have been Dave Koken. He said that if a team needs to win, they're probably not good in the first place. So then again, I do like Arizona. They stumbled a bit because Murray was hurt and now he's healthy. So I don't know if that applies to them, but I think the Niners are going to be super motivated. Speaking of old times. I can't find the comment. Someone asked me if this is the first Friday game I've seen. There's one in 2005. There was a hurricane, and so they had to play the game ahead of time. So it was I think it was Chiefs versus Dolphins, and they applied for a special exemption. So there's that. And then we have a question here: is it me or is it Cam Newton not a starting NFL caliber quarterback anymore? So this is your account. So what do you think?
So I think it's hard to evaluate whether or not he is. If you base it solely on this year, the answer would be no. But there are a few things to remember. The first is that he's not playing with very good weapons. The second is there was an abbreviated offseason and he came to the team late, so he had less time to learn the system. The third thing is the one that gives me the most pause. It's his injury history. He just gets so banged up now, and it just seems like he can't throw the ball as well as he used to, or his shoulder and hand just doesn't hold up. Earlier in the year, we fell victim to the Broncos beating the Patriots because we didn't see Newton hit his hand or he hit his hand in the Broncos game and then couldn't throw against the 49ers. So he just has a knack for getting banged up, and he's an older running quarterback. So I would say that I think he can be a backup in this league, but I think it's like if you can't really rely on him for 16 games anymore. That's just my take on it. And I know he's been healthy, or at least on the field most of the season, but he has been dealing, I think, with nagging injuries, which is a problem.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Like if he's healthy, I think he can be an average or maybe below average starter, but he's never healthy, like you said. Like you just can't count on him. So I want to say I don't think he's going to start next year, but I think if a quarterback goes down in training camp, they might call him up, kind of like the Dolphins did with Jay Cutler a couple years ago when Ryan Tannehill got hurt. I think he's going to be like one of the first guys you call if there's an injury. So I think I have a feeling he's going to start somewhere next year, but he definitely does not look like he can play right now. I mean, he's banged up. Like he has other injuries too. So speaking of the team that beat him this past week, the Dolphins are at the Raiders to cap off the Saturday slate. Dolphins open up -2 and they're up to -3. So who do you like in this game?
So I do like the Dolphins here. I just think that they're the better team at this point. The Raiders are still alive in the playoff race, but they're really not. Like it would take a miracle for them to get in. So I think that their loss to the Chargers, I think that might have completely done them in. Maybe John Gruden can get them motivated for this one. Maybe they can rally around, Marcus Mariota, who's probably going to be starting in place of Derek Carr. But I think the Dolphins are going to have the advantage on defense. They should be able to trick Mariota, who had, he looked really, really good early against the Chargers. But then he had one interception that wasn't his fault, really. It bounced off the receiver's hands, but it was a little behind him. So it was his worst throw at the worst time, was picked off. Then in overtime, there was another interception that was just dropped by the Chargers. So, Mariota started to have some problems throwing further downfield late in the game. I can see the Dolphins giving him fits with the secondary that they have. I'm not entirely convinced that they'll stop the offense, but I do think that Tua will be able to move the ball on the Raiders defense because they can't stop the run at all. Maybe Rod Marinelli's, 10 days to prepare the defense at this point will be good. And then we'll see that if they could stop the run, maybe they could stop Tua a little bit. But the only thing that gives me pause, the Dolphins are shorthanded. So if they're down their top 4 receivers again, I don't think they'll pull this out as a 3-point road favorite. But if they get healthier, and I would wager that Gesicki and Parker will be back this week. They almost played last week, but didn't quite. I think they'll have a chance to pull this one out. But I'm not going to be heavy on them. I've got them down for 1 to 2 units at -3. Probably leaning on the lower side there just because of the questions about the health of their weapons and what Marinelli could do to this defense with a little extra time to repair than last game.
Yeah, so we're thinking similarly here. I think you're right in saying that the Raiders could be flat in this game. Like, yeah, they can still make the playoffs. They're mathematically alive, but they need the Ravens to lose to the Giants and the Bengals. Not one. They need them to lose to both the Giants and the Bengals. So that's definitely not going to happen. The Raiders know they're done. I can't really see them getting up for this game. And like Mariota played well, but I think part of that is because he caught the Chargers off guard. Like they didn't really expect to play against him, so they weren't prepared. And the Dolphins, like Brian Flores is going to have his team prepared to play against Mariota. So they're going to have a better game plan. They're going to know how to stop him. I think that they're going to do well against him. And I can't really see the Raiders beating the Dolphins unless, like you said, like if the Dolphins are missing everyone on offense again, which I don't think is going to happen. Like maybe they have a chance, but I really don't think so. So it sucks to have bad line value here because the Raiders are favored by 1.5 a week ago. And now they're 3-point dogs. It's like a 4.5 point line. Like normally I would jump all over that. We're getting great line value with the Raiders. Let's take them. But I think that because they won't have motivation to play in this game, I think that's an exception. So I'm going to be on the Dolphins with you. But because of the bad line value, I don't know if I'm going to bet this game heavily.
Yeah, it's almost kind of like I wish the Chargers had just covered and not won on Thursday Night Football, because then we'd have way more line value in this one. But at the same time, I was happy to see Justin Herbert and company get a win there. Big note about this game. It's Mariota versus Tua Tagovailoa, 2 native Hawaiians. So the fact that this game was scheduled for Saturday night is a huge win for the NFL, because I imagine it should do pretty huge ratings in Hawaii. So I'll be interested to see those numbers after they come out. But I wonder what the demographic split of who people are rooting for there is.
Yeah, that's true. It's cool that it's a night game. Like if this was the 1 o'clock game, I know in Vegas you couldn't do that, but like theoretically, if this is the 1 o'clock game, like people would get up super early in Hawaii to watch this. But it is nice that it's at 8 o'clock. Question here is Tua or Joe Burrow for the future based on what we've seen so far?
I'm horribly biased, so I want to say Tua. But if you're talking solely from a talent standpoint right now, I think you have to say Burrow. But I've been impressed with what Tua has been able to do and how he's been able to grow in every game coming off that major injury. At the end of the day, it's the same thing where if we had debated these guys for the number 1 overall pick, if Tua hadn't gotten hurt, you can't really go wrong with either of them. But I would lean Tua right now because he's healthy right now. Unfortunately, I wish Burrow hadn't torn his ACL, because the debate between him, Tua, and Herbert in the upcoming 2 years of who's the best would be amazing. But I just don't know if Burrow is going to be on the field to start next year or at what point he's going to come back, because that was a pretty serious knee injury. So I think I'm on Tua because he's already recovered from one major injury.
That's true. Yeah, I think I would go with Burrow. I mean, he was so good earlier in the year. Like it just like you see the difference between him and not him on the Bengals. Like it's really night and day. So it is close though. Like I mean, these two guys have been great. So is Herbert's been awesome too. So you have to include him in the conversation. So yeah, I don't think you can go wrong. All right, let's get to the Sunday slate here. The Browns are at the Jets. The line open up Browns minus 9.5. It's still 9.5. So Jets are coming off the first win, and I know some Jets fans who are so devastated that they're not going to have Trevor Lawrence on their team. But we'll see. We'll see. What do you think about this game?
Yeah, first of all, I want to apologize for so smugly saying I will never bet the Jets again. I don't want to make myself look stupid and then immediately being proven wrong. I have bad luck with the Jets every year, it seems, because they were one of my biggest bets last year against the Bengals, and then they lost. So I should just probably keep my mouth shut on the Jets for the most part. But I'm going to be on the Browns here. Staying away from the Jets. I think that this line is, a little bit lower than I expected it to be. I know it's almost double digits, but I thought it was for sure going to be in the double digits. So getting a little value, at least in my head. And the Browns are they're on fire right now. Baker Mayfield's playing really well. Their offense is just firing on all cylinders. And, I know their game against the Giants could have been closer if the Giants had been able to do anything in the red zone. But the fact of the matter is their defense did well against the Giants. Denzel Ward being back is huge for them. And I could see them shutting down the Jets. Their pass rush is getting healthier as Myles Garrett returns from the COVID list. He's getting back into game shape. So I think that the Browns are going to be ready and motivated to beat the Jets here. They're not going to overlook them because they'll see, oh my God, the Rams got embarrassed by the Jets last week. We can't fall victim to this when we might have a chance to catch the Steelers and overtake them for a division title when it looked like the Steelers could go undefeated the rest of the year, or at least up till the playoffs. So I think that the Browns will be ready for this one. And I think that, they're going to put up a lot of points. And even if the Jets score a bit, Cleveland should win this by double digits, basically. So we're getting less than double digit line. I'll be on that for 1 to 2 units. I'm leaning on the 2 here, probably. I just think that Cleveland has everything going right now. And as long as Baker Mayfield's hot, I will usually stick with the hot quarterback. So he's my guy right now.
Yeah, I'm with you here on the Browns, but you're more confident than I am on this game. I'm worried that the Browns might overlook the Jets, even though the Jets beat the Rams. The Browns have to play the Steelers next week, so like that's a huge game for them. It feels like they need more time to prepare than just a week, so I think there's a chance they could overlook the Jets. The one thing that would give me pause for that, actually, 2 things. Like one is that Baker Mayfield has a chance to beat Sam Darnold. And I know Baker Mayfield has like a huge chip on his shoulder, even though he is the number 1 pick overall. Like some people, they doubt that. And like, while he's not Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson, like the 2 guys you would take over Mayfield right now if you were to redo the draft. Still, like some people were saying that Darnold should have been the pick back a couple years ago. So I think Baker Mayfield might be motivated to beat Darnold. The second thing is the Jets just won the Super Bowl, right? They won the first game of the year. I don't know how motivated they're going to be to try to win again. Obviously, I'm sure they'd want to win again, but they probably did a lot of celebrating after that game. Like, I kind of personal story real quick. I was on a terrible basketball team when I was like 19 or 20 years old. We were 0-8 or 0-9. We're 0-9 in the season. We're playing the best team in the final game of the regular season. We're not going to make the playoffs. The team was like 9-0. And we somehow beat them. I don't know how we beat them. So, and it was great. And then we just went out drinking that night, and we got so hammered. Like if we had another game to play, we wouldn't have been able to play it. So I feel like that's how the Jets are going to approach this game. Like they're not going to really care. So I'm with you on the Browns. I'm just worried that they're going to look past the Jets.
Yeah, I guess I'm banking more on the Jets being completely flat or checked out at this point, because their biggest goal the rest of the way was we want to avoid being 0-16. Like that team knows they're not very good. That was more about we got to get a win to avoid being historically bad. We got to get a win so that if this is Frank Gore's last season, he's not going to go out on a losing team. So that sort of stuff. So I just can't imagine them being that checked in for this one. But I could see Cleveland overlooking the Jets, but I think I said this last week about the Rams. I think that because they know that they need to win this game to have a chance at division, they'll do it. But again, last week said it about the Rams and it didn't pan out. Let's see if Cleveland can get their guys in order a little bit better.
Yeah, we'll see. Here's an interesting question from Andrew Paul. Could the Colts lose next week intentionally so they don't see Trevor Lawrence in the division? Like obviously not if they can win the division, but if they're somehow eliminated from winning the division, what do you think?
I would still say no. I think that I just can't imagine a team that's in the playoffs and still jockeying for some sort of seeding position, even if it's not the division. If they were just battling for, we're either going to be the 6th or 7th seed, then I don't think they would lose. Now, if you're talking about they are locked into a specific seed, I don't think they would throw the game necessarily. But I think if the Colts were locked into, say, the 6th seed or something in that last week, they might sit Phillip Rivers and just say, we don't want him to get hurt, and sit some of their other stars and be like, all right, we're going to use this as a bye week. To put a long answer short, I don't think they're going to lose intentionally if they have something to play for. If they have nothing to play for, they will probably play some of their backups, if not a good chunk of them.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I don't think they lose intentionally. I don't think players think that way. Like the players are super confident. The NFL players, like they're very cocky. Like they probably think that like, hey, we could beat Trevor Lawrence. Like it feels like they have that sort of mentality. I don't think they do that, but I think you're right. If this game doesn't mean anything to them, like if they're locked into either like 5 or 6, then I think that they would probably sit the starters, like you said. So we'll have to see. But it sounds like they'll still be able to potentially be able to win their division. So I guess we'll see. So the other big underdog that won, the Bengals, they're at the Texans this week. The Texans opened up -8. It's still -8. So who do you like here?
You have no idea how much on Monday night I was like, oh man, this line's at 14. I want to bet the Bengals. And then I would look at Ryan Finley and be like, no, I can't do it. And, of course, that would end up being the right call. But so kudos to Ryan Finley and the Bengals for coming out with a ready game plan. And we'll talk more about what's wrong with the Steelers later. But I'm going to be on the Bengals in this one. And pretty much I'm not going to bet this game. But the reason is I just don't think that the Texans are good enough to be favored by 8 against most teams in the league. Like, look, Deshaun Watson's an excellent quarterback, and there's no denying that. But the talent around him this year, like it's not there right now. They're missing so many receivers. David Johnson's played well in recent weeks, but he's been in and out of the lineup. And then defensively, they've been really, really bad. And, they get trampled every week in the running game. I believe they've allowed over 1,900 rushing yards to running backs, the most in the NFL. So after what we saw from Finley and Giovanni Bernard last week, I think that the Bengals might be able to run a little bit on them. The Bengals offensive line looked pretty good against the Steelers, which I thought was extremely surprising. But that maybe they just played their best game of the year. So, there's also, I understand there's a risk of the Bengals being flat after beating the Steelers. They're not really playing for anything at this point, except draft positioning. But I just think that this favors the Texans. And I think, like we talked about earlier, like this isn't a divisional game for the Texans, and they're playing the Titans next week. So they might be looking at that, being like, all right, we'll try hard in that game, and like we'll crush the Titans and ruin their playoff run, make them a wild card or something like that. Just kind of overlook Cincinnati. So if we're getting 8 points, I like the Bengals, but I don't like either of these teams enough to bet them, I don't think.
Yeah, this is a tough game to handicap because on one hand, like what you were saying with the Bengals winning their Super Bowl, I really don't see how they show up for this game at all. Like, especially given that it's a short week. Like they were definitely partying after this game, and they're definitely not preparing for the Texans at all. They have no incentive to win this game. Actually, it's a negative incentive because if they win this game, that they won't get Penei Sewell potentially. So. It's in their best interest to lose. Not that they would lose on purpose, but they really don't have any incentive to win. But on the other hand, like the Texans, like you were saying, they do have the Titans next, but I think that there's a better chance they look behind them. And think about how they lost to the Colts. Like it was a total heartbreaker. Kiki QT fumbling like short of the goal line. Like they would have tied the game, or actually they probably would have gone for 2 to see if they could have won. So they potentially could have won that game. And like, think about what happened a couple weeks ago, before that, where they had a chance to beat the Colts, and they fumbled at the goal line when they had that errant snap. And think about how flat they were against Chicago the following week. Like, I feel like they could be as flat this week. So we're getting like two teams that have absolutely nothing to play for. They're going to have no motivation to play this game. So, I was flip flopping on this game so many times. Like, this is the one game I couldn't decide this week at all. Like, I decided to go with the Texans only because the computer model says the Texans should be favored by 13. Like that's the only reason. I don't know how to handicap this game at all.
Yeah, this feels like one of those games that, like, if you're watching NFL Red Zone, it's going to be like the third quarter. It'll be like, we haven't cut to this game in like 35 minutes, and it's still 3-0 Texans or something along those lines. So, yeah, you bring up a ton of good points. The games against Indianapolis for Houston, both of those are just crushing it. We're going to have to remember that next year because I feel like they're going to bring their best effort under a new coaching staff to beat Indianapolis, whatever they first play in 2021. But yeah, this game is just a complete no bet. Like I said, I'm only taking the Bengals because I don't think the Texans should be favored by 8 over anyone. Wouldn't surprise me if the Texans won this game 19-0. Wouldn't surprise me if the Texans score 3 points. So yeah, who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we're going to see much of this on Red Zone at all. All right. So anyway, let's get to a game that we have an opinion on. So the Colts are at the Steelers. The line open up Colts -2.5. It's down to 1.5. So it looks like sharp money on the Steelers. So who do you like in this game? And as you alluded to, what is wrong with the Steelers?
Yeah, so wait, did you say the Colts are favored in this game now? I had it written down as the Steelers.
Yeah, the Colts are favored by 2.5, and now it's 1.5, yeah.
Okay, that was my bad. I wrote that wrong, but I am on the Colts here nonetheless. So obviously the Steelers have some problems. So the number one reason I'm on this game or on the Colts here is that I just think that their defense matches up well with this Steelers offense, and the Steelers offense is the main problem here. Whatever Randy Finkner, their offensive coordinator, is doing is not working. The Steelers, I know we saw them make a little bit of a comeback in the second half, but basically the Steelers offense the past 3 or 4 weeks, and my friend Dan has been saying that it's been even longer than this, they're just playing the same short passing game all the way down the field, basically. So once teams catch on to that, and we saw this last night when Mackenzie Alexander was breaking up a ton of passes in the slot because he was just jumping routes knowing they're throwing a 5 to 6 yard pass every time. If it's 3rd and 3, they're throwing it to the sticks. And, that's an efficient way to manufacture offense when you don't have a run game. But you have to generate some yards on the ground or those quick passes don't work because there's just not enough space to get them in. So Finkner needs to figure out a way to, if Ben Roethlisberger can't really throw down the field that well anymore, which appears to be a problem, I think his elbow is probably giving him some trouble. He just doesn't have the same arm strength and ability to get zip on the ball as he used to. They're going to have to rely more on the short passing game, but they're going to have to also generate yards on the ground for that to happen. And until they change their run game and make that happen and then, run some play action, it's going to be hard for them to move the ball. And I think the Colts have unique speed on defense. They have the ability to get some pressure on Roethlisberger, even though he's, dropping back really quick and throwing. DeForest Buckner up there can just toss his arms up. He's really good and instinctive. So I think they'll slow down the Steelers offense. Now, I'm a little bit worried about how they'll do against the Steelers defense. But Phillip Rivers and those guys have been hot as of late. And I think the Steelers, coming off a bad Monday night loss, they're not going to have the time to make the adjustments needed to fix what was wrong in their ground game during that. And they're dealing with a lot of injuries at linebacker. So I think that Jonathan Taylor might be able to get some stuff going and help open things up for Phillip Rivers. So I know the Colts have struggled a bit on defenses of late in the secondary, especially, but I just don't think Ben can throw down the field like he used to. And I don't think he's willing to stand in the pocket and, take shots as much as he used to. So unless Finkner changes things, I'm going to be on the Colts here. And I just can't imagine them being ready to make that type of massive change.
So I actually like the Steelers a lot. And I think if you ignore the Monday night game, I know that's saying a lot, but if you ignore the Monday night game, if that never happened, the advanced line on this game was Steelers -3. So this line moved 5.5 points to the open. Now 4.5 points with the Sharps taking the Steelers. I think there's a ton of line value with the Steelers, and I think that their concerns are overblown. I do think there's some things wrong with their team, but they are getting potentially a couple of players back from injury. So they're getting Kevin Dotson back for their offensive line. So Matt Filer was a big loss for them at guard, and but they have a good backup in Dotson. But like Dotson was out Monday night as well, so like they were down to their third string guard. They're already out. The right tackle is already out. The center coming back from missing some games. So I just don't think their offensive line was very good, and it's going to be better this week. And then you mentioned the linebackers. It sounds like Vince Williams is going to come back this week. So having him back is going to be enormous to help them. So I think they're going to be better on both sides of the ball. And I think that being humiliated like they were on national TV is just really going to help them. I think they're going to get focused. I know it's a short week, then that's not ideal. But I love betting like good teams or great teams coming off like humiliating losses, especially if it's on national TV. Like they're the laughing stock of the NFL right now, except for maybe the Rams, just because they lost to the Bengals. Everyone saw it. I think they're going to rebound. And last year they had the Colts at home and they beat them, and that was with Mason Rudolph quarterbacking. Now I know Phillip Rivers wasn't quarterbacking the Colts either, but it was the same Colts defense and same running game. Marlon Mack playing instead of Jonathan Taylor, who's pretty good too. So the Steelers getting points at home, or I guess point and a half at home. I like that a lot. I think I love the line value, and I mentioned before the Dolphins Raiders game. Like usually I love taking this line value. I didn't in that game because of the motivational reasons, but in this game, I think the Steelers are really going to be motivated to come out and really prove to everyone that they're okay.
Yeah, you definitely could be right. And the offensive line injury, I mean, JP Hassenauer has not proven to be a quality backup on the interior. He generated no push at center and guard really in the starts he's made. And, I'm sorry to speak ill of him, but, maybe he'll improve in the future. Getting Dotson back would be huge for that, and maybe they can run better. But I still just think that they're a little too one-dimensional if they can't generate enough yardage on the ground. Like, if they start running well, then they could easily beat the Colts, because then that just opens things up a little more for those quick passes. But if they're still struggling to get like 3-yard gains on a Colts defense, it's been pretty good against the run this year. I think they could have some issues. So I'm going to stick with Indianapolis, but I can see where you're coming from on this, because the line value is immense. And, the Steelers as a home underdog, I mean, if we had said that like 5 weeks ago, it would be like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, why? They're like undefeated. So I do think that their concerns are a little bit overblown, I think, especially on defense, but I'm still worried about that offense. I don't think they have to quite go nuclear on offense, but they have to come up with a lot of new stuff if they're not going to be able to run the ball better, or, find a different and better way to run the ball at least.
Yeah, the thing that gets me here is like the Steelers, I know they've had these issues, but they have so much talent on offense. Like they really do. They're not, I feel like they're going to bounce back at some point. And before the Cincinnati game, it was the drop passes that were the problem. Like they dropped 13 passes in 2 games leading up to the Buffalo game. And yeah, they lost to Buffalo, but Buffalo's a top 3 team in the NFL this year. So you can't really hold that against them. And I feel like they just showed up against Cincinnati and just figured they were going to win. Like they crushed Cincinnati the first time. They're like, oh, this team sucks. They don't have Joe Burrow anymore. We're just going to win. And so they put forth no effort into that game. And that's why I said, I think you have to ignore that game. I think you just toss that aside and pretend as though that game didn't exist. And I think you have to look forward to the next game, especially because they're going to have Vince Williams back, and presumably Vince Williams and Kevin Dotson back, and maybe even James Conner back. So they're definitely going to be better this week, I think.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what happens. I'll be watching their injury report closely, because Vince Williams is another huge one. If he's back, maybe I switch sides depending on what this line looks like. But I'm still pretty strong on Indy at this point. But injury report might swing me.
Yeah, I agree. Vince Williams, that's big. If he's out, I have much less confidence in the Steelers. So I think you're right about that. All right, next game, Bears at the Jaguars. Bears open up -7. They're up to 7.5. And so who do you like here in a game where this team is 2 losses away from getting Trevor Lawrence?
So I hate this game in general because every time I think the Jaguars are going to cover, they don't. And every time I do think they're going to cover, or vice versa. Yeah, whatever. They just never cover when I think they're going to. And they always screw me. And the Bears do the same thing. So, I've gotten the Bears, when I bet them as underdogs, usually do well, but other times they don't. I'm on the Bears here, probably for nothing. I just think that the Jaguars aren't going to have any motivation in this game. And I think the Bears are still technically alive in the playoff race in the NFC. They need help to get in, but I think that their win over the Vikings might give them some confidence. The Jaguars aren't very good, and like I think they can move the ball on them with David Montgomery, and their receivers are getting better and are pretty good. I don't trust Mitchell Trubisky to cover this type of number. That's the one thing I'm concerned about. When it moved up to 7.5, I was like, oh man, I don't want to bet that at all. Really don't want to bet on the Bears winning by 7 or more. But at the same time, the Jaguars have been crushed back-to-back weeks. So, it wouldn't surprise me if the Bears put up 30 points again like they have in recent weeks, and Trubisky doesn't have too many crushing plays in that game. The Bears could win big, but at the same time, I could see Trubisky like throwing 3 picks and the Jaguars just getting lucky and covering. And Gardner Minshew, maybe he's starting and he's like, shoot, I got to win this game so I don't have to compete against Trevor Lawrence or something like that. So there's just a lot of dueling motivations in this game. So I don't like it very much. So I'm going to be on the Bears, but I'm not going to bet it. This line is just terrible. And like, if you say you're in on the Jaguars, like I will probably not be surprised and I will understand why you are. So long as you're not like crazy gung-ho about them.
Oh man, we'll see if crazy gung ho is like maybe you can make that determination. So let me tell you the story. It's not really a story. It's like a conversation I had with a Jets friend of mine. He was bummed out. Like I said, Jets fans are bummed out that they lost Trevor Lawrence, and so we were texting. He's like, "Man, the Jets are a disaster. I don't know what we're gonna do." He's like, "Do we keep Darnold? Do we trade Darnold?" Like, I'm like, "No, you're just gonna take Trevor Lawrence. You'll be fine." And he's like, "What?" And I'm like, yeah, you're going to get the number 1 pick in the draft. And he's like, how? And I said, the Jaguars are going to beat the Bears this weekend. And I think the Jaguars are going to win outright. I think they're going to win this game. Mitchell Trubisky sucks. Like, he does not deserve to be favored by 7.5 points. And he's been so close to imploding like every week like during the stretch, like, he threw that interception in the end zone, and the Vikings had 2 drives to get the game-winning touchdown, or to tie the game at least, and they couldn't do it. Like, Kirk Cousins took some bad sacks, and like the Bears defense stepped up, but like the Bears have been so close to losing to these bad teams, or it even lost to the Lions too. So like, don't forget that. They almost lost to a Viking team missing 7 defensive starters, including Eric Kendricks. I think the Bears they're like this line is absurd. I look back, I'm like, when's the last time the Bears are favored by more than 7? They were favored by more than 7 twice in 2018 when they had that great defense. And they covered those spreads, but those games were against Nathan Peterman. And also, I guess the Jets, who were missing all their receivers in that game. So the Jets couldn't move the ball. The Jaguars, I think they match up well against the Bears, as crazy as it sounds, because the Bears are missing several cornerbacks, and the Jaguars have some talented receivers. And the Bears are also missing some offensive linemen. So I think that the Bears, like, while they should be able to run the ball in the Jaguars, I just don't know how consistent they're going to be, like, moving the chains, because I think Trubisky I think he's going to implode at some point. And don't forget, like, this is another Aurora Snomo situation where the Bears need the win. They're playing a team that's eliminated from the playoffs. The Jaguars, like, technically they don't have a lot to play for, but they're coming off a humiliating loss, like 40-14. And they have, like, I feel like Minshew is going to want to, like you said, play to have a role somewhere. I think they're going to play hard. And you never know with these games. Like last week, if I were to tell you this past Tuesday, I think the Jets are going to beat the Rams, and I think the Bengals are going to beat the Steelers. Like, you would have said, like, "Wow, you're crazy. What are you talking about?" And like, both things happen. And I think with the Bears coming off a divisional win and having Green Bay next week, I think this is the ultimate flat spot. I just don't think they show up. I think they take this game for granted. I think they think they're going to beat the Jaguars easily, and I think the Jaguars are going to win.
Okay, the Jaguars winning, that's a little bit too gung-ho for me. You may have swayed me on this line, though, because I don't like the line value already. So I like the theory, the Aurora Snomo theory I like. I don't think that the Jaguars are going to win. But I think I'll change sides on this one. I'm so wishy-washy on this game. So if you had been on the Bears and I was on the Jaguars, I probably would change it too. But I mean, I just hate this game. If the Jaguars beat the Bears, though, credit to you for figuring that one out, because I am pretty sure you'll be one of like 5 people like online that will predict and be like the Jaguars are going to beat the Bears. So if that happens, credit to you. I'll wear some sort of ridiculous party hat to celebrate it when we talk about it next week. But we'll see what happens. I'm on the Jaguars now with you, still for no units because I don't want to bet this game. But yeah, the line definitely favors the Jaguars. I would say that.
Yeah, they'll be one of my super contest picks. So I'm gonna put my money where my mouth is. I'm gonna bet the money line a little bit, and then I'm gonna bet the Jaguars plus 7.5. So if they lose 40-14 again, which could happen, it's football. I'll feel dumb, but I think that this is a terrible spot for the Bears. Like, how are you focused for this team, this non-conference foe, after beating the Vikings and then having Green Bay coming up? I just think they're gonna be flat, and Trubisky does not deserve to be favored by more than 7.5. I actually have like a Word document where I kind of like go through everything so I don't miss anything. Actually, one of my notes, it says like a logical lines, and it says, is Trubisky favored by more than 3 on the road? If so, bet against him. And like here, yep, he's favored by more than 7 on the road. So I think this is too good to be true, but we'll see.
Yeah, no, that's a good note to have, because like I kind of, in my brain, because I look at it from the fantasy football perspective a lot, I'm like, oh, Mitch Trubisky's playing well. And then I look back at the games, I'm like, okay, he's thrown like horrible interceptions a lot in these games and gotten lucky. So I don't think I'm going to trust him long term. I saw someone tweet like Mitch Trubisky's made himself a lot of money. And I'm like, I don't know about that. Those mistakes are still pretty bad.
If someone pays them a lot of money, then they're going to regret it. Just to say that. Anyway, let's move on. The Panthers at the Redskins. This line opened up -2. It's still -2. So who do you like in this game?
So I do like Washington in this one, with a caveat. Their quarterback situation is currently a mess. Alex Smith is hurt. We don't know if he's going to play or if he's going to be fully healthy for this game. Dwayne Haskins is now in hot water because after Sunday's loss, he went out partying with strippers without a mask on. So now he's got this whole, like, he had to apologize to the team, and now he's already been charged with violating COVID protocol once, so it's a second offense. So now he might get in trouble. He could get disciplined by Ron Rivera, who's looking to like instill a culture of accountability there too. So then if he's out and Smith can't play, then you're looking at Taylor Heineke starting. Taylor Heineke's only been with the team for a couple weeks. He was with Scott Turner, Ron Rivera, and the Panthers a couple years ago, but he only started one game. So there's a lot of mess possible at the quarterback position, but I'm treating this as if either Smith or Haskins is going to play, more likely Smith at this point. And I just look at this matchup from a perspective of Washington's defense is just so good right now. And look, I know that they've had some bad moments. They had a 50-yard touchdown run allowed to Carlos Hyde last week, but this matchup against the Panthers offense, I think, benefits them. The Panthers offensive line's a little bit banged up. They haven't played well in recent weeks. Teddy Bridgewater's taken 7 sacks in the last 2 games because he's been under a lot of heat. And that was against the Broncos and the Packers, both who have pass rushes that aren't as strong as what Washington has. So I'm basically banking on Washington being able to get a ton of pressure on Teddy Bridgewater, forcing him into some mistakes, them shutting out the run game. Whether or not Christian McCaffrey plays, that's a big question. I don't know if they can shut down McCaffrey if he does, so I might swing on that. But I do think their defense has a big advantage here. And then on offense, their offense isn't very good, but if they get off to like a good enough start where they get points early and don't put themselves in a massive halftime deficit, I can see them winning. So where they're favored by less than a field goal at home, I like them enough to consider a unit or two on them. I'm not going to bet this until I know what the quarterback situation is. And if it's Heineke, I probably will switch sides. But, if things go how I expect and Alex Smith is ready to go and the defense is good, the team is healthy, and Antonio Gibson, who also might come back this week, if he's playing, I'll probably be on Washington for 2 units. If, any combination of those players aren't back, or we're looking at like, oh, Taylor Heineke's going to start and Antonio Gibson isn't playing, I'll probably be on the Panthers. But it's looking highly likely I'll be on Washington right now.
Doesn't this line surprise you, though? Like, the Redskins have won 4 of 5, and they have the better record than the Panthers, and they're only favored by 2 points. And the public is betting all over the host here. Like, shouldn't the Washington be favored by 4, 4.5, 5, something like that? something's up, like something shady here. And this line was created with the prospect of Haskins or Alex Smith playing. I think it's been taken off the board since, but this was the line when before the Haskins news broke. So I think it would be -2. I mean, if Alex Smith comes back, maybe it's like -2.5, -3. But like, something's weird here, and I think it kind of made me think like, hey, like what have the Redskins done really like in these wins? So they beat the Niners, which is like this is a nice win. They kind of dominated with Nick Mullins, but Mullins stinks, and like he was under pressure a lot, and he made mistakes. They beat Dallas on Thanksgiving, which is like not impressive at all. They beat the Bengals when Joe Burrow got hurt, and Joe Burrow, the Bengals were ahead in that game, and they had possession when Burrow went down. And so like these wins just they beat the Steelers, which is like the marquee win. But we've learned since that win wasn't as impressive as we thought it was. So it kind of makes me wonder, like does a team from the NFC East deserve to be favored over a team from not the NFC East? And I think because the Redskins are a little inflated from the win total, which is like not like I feel like undeserving. I think the Panthers might be the better team, and they're the underdogs here. So like despite the great defensive line. So I feel like Teddy Bridgewater should be able to throw on them, even though he might see pressure. Russell Okung is going to have a day extra to come back. So I feel like the Panthers are going to squeak out a victory here. And this is another case of Aurora Snomo. Redskins need a win. They're playing a team eliminated from the playoffs. The Panthers have a day extra to prepare. So I think Carolina wins this game, but I'm not like super confident.
Okay, there's one big motivational edge that I forgot to mention. This is technically a huge revenge game for Ron Rivera, because he's playing against his former team. And look, I know he had some good years in Carolina, but no one's going to be happy if they have a chance to beat the team that still fired them eventually. So, I mean, the fact that he has a division title on the line and can do it against his former team, I think will play a role in that. That said, I am still worried. There's so much going off the field between what's happening with Haskins and then the Washington Post report about Dan Snyder settling a sexual misconduct claim for $1.6 million. Like, this is all stuff that happened today that I am very busy on Tuesdays usually. And I'm like, all right, let's hope nothing crazy happens with the Washington football team. And boom, all this happens. I'm like, great. So ton of off the field stuff going on. So I wonder if people knew that was coming out and that's why this line is lower. So I can see your side of it for sure. But I'm willing to bank on Ron Rivera here. I'm a huge fan of his, and I think he's done a great job with this team. But again, I could see Carolina winning for sure.
What were you more surprised by, the Haskins strip club thing, or Daniel Snyder settling the case?
Oh, probably given the Washington Post reports that were already out there, it has to be what happened with Haskins. But like, I'm not that surprised by either, because like I said, Haskins had already violated COVID protocol, and I think the maturity with him is a concern. But then Snyder, he's like all the sexual misconduct allegations from the Post earlier in the summer. It's just it's a mess sometimes over there. But Ron Rivera again has done a really good job of cleaning stuff up and changing that culture. So I hope for coach's sake they can get a win in this one. He deserves to go to the playoffs.
Yeah, I love Ron Rivera. I do want him to make the playoffs. I should say I would want him to make the playoffs if I didn't have that bet on the Giants. But that Giants bet looks like it's going to lose, unfortunately.
Yeah, totally fair, because I also have a bet on the Giants technically. So I'd be happy. I'm basically happy either way. But if Ron Rivera makes the playoffs, I'll be applauding and giving him a standing O from up here in New England.
Yeah. Speaking of the Giants are at the Ravens. This line opened up -10.5. It's still -10.5. We don't know who's going to quarterback the Giants, but I'm not sure it matters. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, so I like the Giants a little bit in this one. I know the Ravens are hot, and they put up 40 points in back-to-back games. But I think the Giants defense is good enough that they can, slow down the Ravens. And I know the Ravens it's the Aurora Snomo effect. They need to win this game again to be sure that they make the playoffs and everything. But, they can't overlook the Giants here. I know they're playing the Bengals next week, so maybe they won't. But they might just be thinking like, all right, well, we're on a roll. We're going to crush the Giants. We're favored by 10 points. Let's just get this over with. And I think the Giants can put up a fight. I don't know if they necessarily will put up a big one, or they're favored by less than or more than 10, I think that I'd be willing to give them a shot on that, because I think their defense has played well this year. They can slow down the run. I mean, they're not going to entirely contain Lamar Jackson, but if they get James Bradbury back and can take away Hollywood Brown or one of their outside receivers, like they'll be able to stop them enough. It's more of a question about, can they do anything on offense to keep up with this? And if Baltimore scores like 28 points, are the Giants going to be able to get to the 18-point mark to keep this close? I'd like to think so. I'm not willing to bet on that, but I'll be on the Giants, I think, for office pool purposes.
Makes sense. I'm so bad at handicapping Giants games this year. I'm 2-10 against the spread in Giants games. The Giants and the Rams. Like, I actually did the math. Overall, I'm like 51.3% in all games this year. If you take out Giants games and Rams games, I'd be 56.5% against the spread. So it just shows you how bad I've been with these games. I have the Ravens on the site, so the Giants are probably the right play, and I think that there is definitely a chance the Ravens kind of overlook the Giants. Like, not that they're looking ahead to the Bengals, like you said, but I think that they might just, they saw the Giants play on national TV. They saw the Giants kind of look pathetic, even though they had the early lead. I feel like they're not going to take the Giants seriously, and the Giants are strong on the defensive line. And that's kind of like where the Ravens are weaker this year, because they lost Ronnie Stanley. They lost Marshall Yanda to retirement. They're not as good at blocking anymore. So if the Giants can win in the trenches and kind of force Lamar Jackson into a turnover or two, they could keep this game close. And, as long as they get decent quarterback play from Daniel Jones, if he returns and he doesn't commit a billion turnovers like he did against Arizona, the Giants could stay in this game. And, it wouldn't even surprise me if they won outright, like as crazy as it sounds, because they have a good defense. And especially with Bradbury coming back. And if Jones can play well, then I think they have a chance to get the win. At least I hope so.
Yeah. So are you on the Giants or the Ravens?
Yeah. Well, on the site, I'm on the Ravens, but on the podcast, I'm on the Giants.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay, cool. Yeah, no, I agree. I think the line is just too high. So, I'll be interested to see how Daniel Jones looks, though, because I think they brought him back too early. Like, I wonder what Colt McCoy would have been able to do against the Cardinals. Like, I don't think he gets sacked as many times, doesn't turn the ball over as many times. And we saw him move the ball well against Cleveland. They just, couldn't convert in the red zone. And they tried that ridiculous fake field goal where the play call was actually not horrible, but the execution was bad. So, I'm interested to see how the Giants do in this one. I think it's going to be a good barometer of where, like, they're really at. Like, if they compete well with Baltimore, I think we can say, like, all right, they're really close. They just need a few more things. Whereas if they get blown out, it's going to be like, all right, they had some nice moments this year, but they're further away than maybe we had hoped.
Yeah, that fake field goal was so frustrating because the guy had another guy open, and he threw it to, and as the play was happening, I'm like, oh, he has him open, and then he threw it to the other guy who's covered. I'm like, what are you doing? It was so frustrating. Anyway, last of the early games, Falcons at the Chiefs. This line opened up 13. It's down to 10.5. The sharp money coming in on Atlanta. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I like the Falcons a lot. I have 3 units on them. I just can't see why the Chiefs would care much about this game. They basically have the number 1 seed wrapped up, and they should be able to beat the Falcons pretty easily. But like, how hard are they going to be willing to try at this point? Like, I'm not questioning their effort, and Andy Reid's a great coach, and Patrick Mahomes is a true gamer. But I mean, I don't think that they're a lock to beat the Falcons by 10.5 points. We saw what they did to the Bucs last week. They kind of came out, punched the Bucs in the mouth right out of the chute. Then, they did what the Falcons do and blow massive leads in the second half. But I think that they've figured out a way to play without Julio Jones. And credit to Raheem Morris and his staff. That defense has gotten better as the year's gone along. They're still weak in the secondary, but they're second best against running backs this year in terms of yards allowed on the ground. So the Chiefs aren't going to be able to really run on them without Clyde Edwards-Helaire. It's going to be Le'Veon Bell. And, Bell can rip off some runs, but I think that against this defensive front, he might have trouble doing that. So you render the Chiefs one-dimensional, and granted, one-dimensional with Patrick Mahomes is pretty much three-dimensional with any other quarterback. I think that, they might get slowed down or stopped a couple times, and that's enough for the Falcons if they can play well on offense to keep this game close. So I don't think the Chiefs should be favored by this many points. The fact that the line opened up at 13, I thought that was way too high. And coming down, I think it still is too high. As long as this is double digits, I like the Falcons. Like the Falcons quite a bit here. And if Julio Jones comes back, I'll like them even more.
Yeah. Do you remember the last time the Chiefs have won by double digits?
I knew this at one point. It was when they beat the Jets, wasn't it?
Yep, that was week 8 against the Jets. That's the last time they won by double digits. So ever since they lost Mitchell Schwartz and they've been down 2 offensive linemen, it seems like their offense has been kind of limited. And that's kind of like weird saying because like Patrick Mahomes still looks great sometimes or most of the time. And like Tyreek Hill makes these amazing plays and Travis Kelce dominates. But the Chiefs, like, it seems like they stall and drive sometimes because Mahomes gets under pressure a lot and he has to throw the ball away. Kind of like, remember the Tampa game? They had a big lead, and then there were a couple of drives in the second half where Mahomes had to scramble out and just throw the ball away, and like that allowed Tampa to come back and get the backdoor cover. It seems like that happens quite a bit with the Chiefs because they don't have the great protection that they normally have, and that'll change when they get Schwartz back because they'll only be down one offensive lineman, but they really miss Mr. Schwartz a lot. So if they're not clicking like at 100% in this game, if they're like at 85 or 90%, like they have been, that's going to allow Atlanta to hang around and potentially get the backdoor cover. Matt Ryan is just like, he can create some plays in the fourth quarter when he's down a lot and get a backdoor cover. It seems like when he's favored by, or when he's an underdog of a ton of points, it seems like he usually covers the spread. So I definitely like Atlanta. And like one other thing to consider, this may not factor in, but if the Colts are beating the Steelers by a ton of points in the second half, Andy Reid might take notice or might learn about that, and he might pull his starters. Like Andy Reid is notorious for sitting his starters when they don't need to play. So that's one thing you have to consider if you're going to bet the Chiefs.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Andy Reid's very good about, being sure all the team's healthy for the playoffs, which I think is, it's paid off for him, especially with the Chiefs. We saw him even do it with Alex Smith. Patrick Mahomes' first career start came because they were resting Alex Smith for the playoffs. So, yeah, I know both of us aren't convinced that the Colts are going to win huge over the Steelers, but if it's happening, that certainly could happen. And then, who knows what happens in that point? Maybe the Falcons win outright. So, yeah, I think the Falcons are definitely the right side here. This line's just too high, and the sharp action moving this 2.5 points really backs that point up.
Yeah, I like Atlanta a lot. It sounds like it's going to be a joint entry for us. So that's it's good to hear. All right, let's get to the late slate. There are 3 games in this late slate. The first one is Broncos at the Chargers. This line opened up Chargers -4. It's down to 3. It looks like the sharp money coming in on Denver. So what do you like here?
Yeah, this is a classic choice of, do you trust Anthony Lynn's clock management or Drew Lock's ball security in this game? And, I don't trust either of them. But if I have to pick one of the two sides, I'm going to be on the Chargers here. I just think Justin Herbert has played so well this year. We saw him lead that drive in overtime against the Raiders, where he just hit Jalen Guyton on that massive pass. And that's without Keenan Allen playing most of the game. Mike Williams on a rep count. He hits Jalen Guyton on this massive play, and then he sneaks it into the end zone himself after a couple tries to get the win against the Raiders. And granted, I know it's the Raiders defense, but the Broncos are dealing with a lot of injuries on their defense. They haven't performed up to what we've expected this year. Again, that's partially due to injuries, and I still think Vic Fangio is a good coach. But I think that the Chargers are going to move the ball on the Broncos. I think that they'll find ways to turn Drew Lock over on defense. I don't know how much Joey Bosa is going to be able to play, but we saw Chris Harris play pretty well against the Raiders. And with the extra time off, I think that they'll be well rested, prepared for this one. So I like the Chargers at the -3 number a little bit. I'm not going to bet huge on it. I got it down for 1 or 2 units right now. And I could easily see Denver covering this at 3 points, but I think in this case, I think the Chargers are the better side. It wouldn't surprise me if Anthony Lynn does something stupid and costs the team points and costs them a cover. But I'm going to stick with the Chargers because their offense is better and more efficient.
Yeah, it's a little scary to bet the Chargers when they're favored by this few points, right? Because like they could always screw up. But the past couple of weeks, they've won in the clutch. They beat Atlanta by a field goal at the end, and then they beat the Raiders in overtime. So like maybe things are turning around for them. Maybe it's a little too late, but it could be happening. So my one concern here is that Justin Herbert is a rookie quarterback playing a great defensive-minded coach in Vic Fangio. So that's the one issue I have, but I'm still going to be on the Chargers because Denver's down their top two cornerbacks. Like they're definitely not the same defense that we saw earlier in the year. And even when they had the top two cornerbacks, Justin Herbert, despite playing against Fangio, he scored 30 points against them in Week 8. In that first matchup. Now, he threw 2 interceptions in the second half. So, like that was Fangio kind of tricking him. But again, Denver's not going to have their top two cornerbacks, and the Chargers, they didn't have Austin Eckler in that game. So, they're going to be a lot stronger than they were in that game. And I feel like they're going to win this game. I like you mentioned, like Drew Lock, you can't really trust him at all, especially if Joey Bosa plays. We'll see about Bosa, and that'll kind of affect my unit count, but I'm definitely going to be on the Chargers.
Yeah, one other thing in this game to keep in mind, Chargers players love Anthony Lynn for all his shortcomings that I constantly mention on here. He's well liked, so they're going to play hard for him because they might think, hey, if we can put a little winning streak together at the end of the year, we might be able to keep him off the hot seat one more year. It's sort of what we saw with Dan Quinn and the Falcons last year. And, who knows, they might end up in the same scenario as the Falcons next year but I think that the players will be ready to play hard for Lynn. So I think that plays into it too. And again, Broncos aren't going to play hard for Fangio, but I don't think his seat's quite as hot as Lynn's.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, everyone loves Lynn, but yeah, he probably needs to move on. But I agree. I think they will play hard for him for sure. All right, Rams at the Seahawks. This line opened up Seahawks -3. It's down to 1.5. There's a ton of sharp action coming in on the Rams. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I like the Rams in this one for a couple units. I just think like the people are probably overreacting a little bit to the Rams losing to the Jets. Like horrible loss. There's no denying that, but they were very much probably looking ahead to this game against the Seahawks, and they match up really well against the Seahawks. There seems to be something wrong with Seattle right now. Russell Wilson hasn't played well in recent weeks, so I don't know if he's a little skittish. I don't know if he's dealing with some sort of injury or if, just something's not clicking right now. But he's been very up and down. And I know they just beat Washington, but that win wasn't really impressive, and they very nearly blew it at the end. And if not for a Dustin Hopkins missed extra point earlier in the game, that would have gone to overtime because, the Redskins wouldn't have had to go for 2. They could have kicked the extra point and make it 17, kick a field goal when Dwayne Haskins sacked on the last drive. Anyway, that's beside the point. I had to explain to someone why that is sound football logic earlier this week, so I'm a little bothered by that. And the other big thing is I think Sean McVay is going to be super motivated to beat the Seahawks. Good team coming off a humiliating loss. It's never a bad thing to bet on them. And I think that he's going to find ways to attack Seattle's biggest weakness on defense. It's been their cornerbacks, not necessarily from a talent perspective, but from a health perspective. Shaq Griffin's been on and off the field. Quentin Dunbar has been off the field a lot. That was one of his problems in Washington, could never stay healthy. So I think that the Rams have a good chance to win this one if they can pressure Russell Wilson up the middle, use Jalen Ramsey to shut down DK Metcalf. It could be a long day for the Seahawks even at home. So I like the Rams to win this one outright. So if they're underdogs, I'm going to be all over them.
Yeah, I was going to say I wanted to defer to you in this game because, as I said before, I can't handicap the Giants and Rams to save my life. I think I'm like 5-22 combined in their games. It's just unbelievable. Like it's ridiculous. And like I said before, in the other games this year, I'd be 56% against the spread. But I do agree with you here. I think it makes sense to take the Rams. First of all, the sharps are on the Rams. Second, the Rams match up well against Seattle because Seattle's pass protection is not great. And you're going to have the Rams. Obviously, they have a great defensive line, and they should be able to rattle Russell Wilson a little bit. Not that you can do that very well, but he's going to see a ton of pressure, and that's going to limit their offense. And the Seahawks can't get pressure on the quarterback, and that's the biggest thing for me here. Jared Goff, when he plays, I think when he plays a great defensive coordinator or plays a team that can pressure a lot, like we saw against the Jets. The Jets have a great defensive line. he tends to struggle. And the Seahawks, except for Carlos Dunlap, they can't get to the quarterback at all. And it's not like they have a great defensive coordinator. So I think that bodes well for Jared Goff, who beat the Seahawks a few weeks ago. I think he's going to do it again. So I like the Rams, but I can't bet this game given that I can't handicap the Rams.
I think I'm pretty bad at handicapping the Rams too. I think we've been on the same side with them a lot. And Derek, thankfully, thinks we're on the right side. Derek, I hope you are better at handicapping the Rams than both of us, for our sake. But maybe we'll finally get on the hot streak with the Rams ahead of the playoffs. That would be nice. Just so, build a little 3-game win streak to build momentum for next time we have to bet the Rams next year.
Yeah. I should say this is like 1% of my pick analysis was in spite, because if I pick the Rams and they lose, then the sooner they'll be eliminated from the playoffs. I feel like the better it's going to be for both of us.
Sure.
So yeah, there it is. The last of the late afternoon games, Eagles at the Cowboys. This line opened up Cowboys -2. It's up to Eagles -2.5. The public is all over the Eagles. The Sharps have not weighed in on this. This is all public money. So who do you like in this game?
So I'm all over the Eagles. Bet the ranch on the Eagles at this point. There's nothing that impresses me about the Cowboys' recent wins. They beat the Bengals and the 49ers. Granted, they played a good game against the Bengals, probably one of their most complete ones of the year, but it was Brandon Allen at quarterback, and, he hasn't been very good this year. And then 49ers, Nick Mullins just turned the ball over repeatedly, and the 49ers could have won that game. So I think the Eagles are in much better shape. Jalen Hurts legitimately beat the Saints. I know the Saints were looking ahead to the Chiefs game in that one, but the defense put forth a good effort, and Hurts played well. And then Hurts came out against the Cardinals, and he had one play at the end of the game to get the ball into the end zone to tie it, and they almost did it. They almost pulled it off. So I really like his chances against this Dallas defense. I think he's just playing so well. I doubted him at first, but the way he's developed on the field so quickly is just it's really impressive. I think Dallas is going to have a ton of trouble containing the pass game. They've allowed 24 touchdown passes to wide receivers this year, most in the NFL. So, the Eagles don't have a ton of good weapons, but, they have enough guys that can get behind the defense. And then if they have to account for Hurts scrambling too, forget about it. So I'm going to be on the Eagles here. I have them down for 4 units. Maybe that's a little bit ambitious, but I think that they could turn this into a blowout because I'm just not convinced the Cowboys defense can do anything to Jalen Hurts. And maybe I'm overconfident in the rookie, but I think he's a pretty good player so far.
Yeah, he's done extremely well. A lot better than Carson Wentz, although that's kind of a low bar, really, because Wentz was one of the worst starting quarterbacks in the NFL. And not a surprise that the Eagles are better now that they have competent quarterback play. I wonder what this line would be if the Cowboys lost to the Bengals and the Niners. And the reason I say that is because while they won both those games, I thought they were very lucky to win both those games. They got 3 turnovers from the Bengals in the first 3 drives of the game. The Bengals fumbled all 3 drives, and the Cowboys just got out to a big lead, and the Bengals couldn't keep up because they had Brandon Allen. And then the Niners fumbled twice early in the game, and then they had 2 interceptions. In both those games, the Bengals outgained the Cowboys. Let me give you specifics here. The Bengals outgained the Cowboys 314 to 272, so kind of close. But last week, the 49ers outgained the Cowboys 458 to 291. So like a big disparity there. I think the Cowboys are overrated right now, even though the record is bad. They're 5-9, but I think they could easily be 3-11 right now. And if a red hot Jalen Hurts is at a 3-11 team, I think this line is above 3. And so I think that despite the line move and 2 to -2.5, it's a pretty big line move, even though we're not crossing any key numbers. I still think this line is potentially low. So even though the public is all over the Eagles, I think sometimes the square side is the right side. And if you buy Fubo at $40, it may seem like the wrong move at the time, but it turns out being right. So I'm with the Eagles. I'm with you on the Eagles for maybe 3 units or so.
Yeah, as famed Red Sox pitcher turned broadcaster Dennis Eckersley would say, bet the ranch on this one. I'm very confident in this one. But as always, Eck would bet the ranch on things and be wrong about everything. So maybe I shouldn't even say that. But yeah, no, the Eagles they should cover this 3-point spread easy.
Yeah, I would think so. Sunday night game, Titans at the Packers. Here's another big sharp move. The Packers open up -5. It's down to 3. So tons of sharp money on Tennessee. So who do you like here?
Yeah, so I like the Packers now that's down to -3. I think that the Packers are going to shred the Tennessee defense. Like Tennessee's defense is still not very good. I know they gotten some players back. They have a Dory Jackson back, which should help them hypothetically, but they can't get any pass rush really. So I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be able to stand in the pocket and make some throws. I know he was under pressure against the Panthers, but they have more pass rushing talent, believe it or not, than the Titans. I think the Titans mostly just have Jeffrey Simmons. So while they'll need to focus on stopping him. I think they'll be able to do it. And I know Derrick Henry's probably going to have a big day on offense for the Titans. The Packers don't have a very good run defense, but I just kind of see this game being a shootout back and forth. Teams are going to score a lot of touchdowns. And I think it's going to come down to whoever scores the last touchdown. I think it's going to end up being Aaron Rodgers because I think the Packers defense will be able to come up with one stop. And I just can't fathom the Titans defense that allowed Detroit to move the ball on them, not like entirely easily, but way more easy than Detroit should be able to move the ball on them last week. So I like the Packers here for a unit. I'm not going to bet heavily on this one because, I could see a situation where Tennessee jumps out to a quick lead, and then if the Packers are playing catch up, it's going to be hard for them to cover this. But I think in a shootout, I'd prefer Aaron Rodgers. Especially if the Packers start quick. So I'm on the Packers for a unit here.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not like too crazy about this game. Like not even crazy enough to bet a unit. Like I think that you're definitely more confident than I am. And if this line were still 5, I think I'd be on Tennessee because I think this is going to be a close game. Like I think that the most likely result of this game is going to be Green Bay winning by 3, and that's exactly what the line is. So. But yeah, when it comes down to it, I think I'm definitely more confident in Rodgers, especially coming off that loss, the loss against the spread, and like it was kind of he treated it like a loss. Like if you listen to his post game press conference or not like post game sideline review, he sounded so depressed. And I was talking to my friend Chris at the time, and he's like, wow, like Rodgers sounds like his dog died. Like he sounded so sad and like. You would think that without watching the game that the Panthers beat the Packers, even though they didn't. So I think Rodgers is going to be more motivated. The Packers have one more day to prepare for this game than the Titans, which could mean a little bit. Like it's definitely a small advantage. And the Packers, their one like problem right now is that they're missing 2 offensive linemen. So their offense is not as efficient as it could be. But Tennessee has no pass rush, like you said. Like they except for Jeffrey Simmons, not getting to the quarterback at all. Kind of like I remember when they played the Bengals earlier in the year, and the Bengals are missing their entire offensive line, and yet it didn't even matter because the Titans couldn't get to Joe Burrow at all. So the Titans won't be able to take advantage of this. And yeah, like you said, I think you said it perfectly. In a shootout, I think you take Rodgers over Tannehill. But I think this is going to be a close game. I think both teams are going to move the ball extremely well. It's going to come down to the wire, and I think I trust Rodgers at the end. So maybe instead of 3, maybe they win this game by 4.
Yeah, and I think why Rodgers was so like depressed sounding that second half against the Panthers because they were moving the ball so well in the first half, then they completely stalled. And I still can't I look back on the game and I still really can't figure out why. Like Brian Burns was getting some pressure, so was Derek Brown, but I guess maybe his receivers weren't getting open, and maybe he's thinking in the back of his head like, "Oh shoot, I just had a bad game, and now I might not be MVP." Which like players don't focus on individual awards except when it's like to prove a point or a chip on his shoulder type deal. Like Rodgers cares more about winning games than anything else, but. If he feels the team could have performed better and like he feels like, oh, I should have done better in that game, he's not going to be happy about it because he knows he's in a competitive race for MVP too. That's just one theory about it because MVPs do matter, especially for Hall of Fame voting and all that jazz.
That's a good point. I didn't consider that. So like, yeah, that could be it. That could be one of the reasons. And yeah, I was I can't believe the Panthers covered when they went down so big, and I had them in the Super Contest, and like, oh man, this is gonna be brutal. Actually, remember when Bridgewater fumbled at the goal line, and I called this you called this the Bachelor's Paradise package, and I called it the divorce package. So because games were on, my wife was out; she was hanging out with friends, and so like one of her friends calls my phone. And I pick it up, and like she's like, like Dina's drunk or whatever. So I'm talking on the phone with her friend, and I hear my wife in the background. And like as that's happening, Bridgewater fumbles at the goal line, and I'm like, I want to yell, but like I can't because I'm on the phone. So like it was so aggravating, but I'm so happy that the Panthers covered. So anyway.
They actually pushed for me because I bet the game too late at exactly 8 points. So I won't complain because they did end up pushing, but I wish I had that extra hook there.
Yeah, it was 8.5 in the Super Contest, so definitely thrilled about that. Actually went up to, it was 9.5 in one of the sports books. That line was all over the place. I saw 8, I saw 9.5. It was kind of nuts. So anyway, before we get to the Monday night game, please hit subscribe or the like button on YouTube, or share this video. Like I said before, that would help us out a lot. So the Monday night game is Bills at the Patriots. This line opened up Bills minus was it 6.5? It's up to 7. So who do you like in this game?
I like the Bills. We haven't seen the Patriots being eliminated from the playoffs in 11 years, so it's kind of hard to predict how they're going to respond to this. But as we've said, traditionally, if teams eliminated mathematically, they're not going to play well. And I can't imagine them being really motivated for this team because a lot of the players on this team have had a ton of success during their career. So now they're in this bad season, which not a lot of them are accustomed to. And, you could be like, oh, let's beat the Bills. But like that accomplishes what? Knocking them from the 2 to the 3 seed? Yeah, no, that's still a big deal. But I just don't see the motivation being there. Meanwhile, the Bills, they beat the Patriots earlier in the year, and now they have a chance to sweep their rivals and really prove like, hey, they're done right now. Like the division is ours, and it's going to be ours for a while with Josh Allen. And obviously Allen's been playing really, really well lately. They have an extra day to prepare for this game. I don't see why the Patriots would be motivated for this. I mean, 7 points in Gillette Stadium is a lot, but I could see Buffalo rolling in here and scoring first, and the Patriots just putting up nothing on offense and losing like 35-3 or something like that. So I'll be on the Bills here. I'm not going to bet super heavily on this. But I think they're the right side, especially with Stephon Gilmore hurt and gone, because the Patriots secondary no longer matches up really well with the Bills receivers.
Yeah. So this is the first time they've been eliminated from the playoffs since 2008. But so like, what's the weird thing is here? Like, is that so the Patriots missed the playoffs twice ever since Tom Brady became the starting quarterback in 2008. When Brady was hurt, and 2002, which is Brady's second year. But what's strange is that they never played a game in which they were eliminated from the playoffs. Because in both those seasons, they had a chance to get into the playoffs in week 17. In 2008, they finished 11-5, so they're still alive in week 17. And in 2002, they needed to win. They needed to beat the Dolphins, which they did in overtime. And they needed the Jets to lose to the Packers, which like the Packers were like 12-4 that year. So the Packers were favored in that game, but the Jets ended up winning. So like the Patriots have never played a game in the post Brady era or in the Brady era or after in which they've been eliminated from the playoffs. And this is the first time. So I agree with what you're saying. Like they couldn't even stop the run last week. They showed no interest in tackling for some reason, even though they were so alive. So now that they're officially eliminated from the playoffs, I just don't see them tackling well. And like, I thought it was really telling that they lost to the Dolphins. Like that is a game they should have won. Like, I say it again, like Bill Belichick had extra time to prepare for a rookie quarterback missing his top 4 weapons, and he still lost by double digits. Like this team is just bad. And I think that if they didn't have a great coach like Belichick, instead of the record right now, which is 6-8, they might be 4-10, 3-11, something like that. Like Bill Belichick has done a great job of getting the most out of this team, but they're just falling apart. Like they have nothing else. I feel like their tank's on empty right now. Like I don't think they can win this game. And meanwhile, the Bills, I think they're going to be motivated, even though like this game probably doesn't mean that much. Like they would love to kick the Patriots' butt, so I think just kind of kick them when they're down, and the Bills. I think they, like you said, they want to kind of establish that they're the top dog in the AFC. So AFC East. So I like the Bills a lot.
Yeah, I think it's just the right time to move on from the Patriots at this point. Like they pulled off some nice covers this year, but it's not going to happen again. they're done. They're building for next year. They got to figure out what they're going to do at quarterback and how they're going to find some offensive weapons. They have a lot of work to do. As long as Belichick's there, they'll be competitive, but that offense is just bad.
Yeah, it is bad. They have to find a quarterback. My dad suggested that they trade for Carson Wentz, and then I kind of told him that given Wentz's contract, probably not a realistic situation unless the Eagles give them draft picks. So, and given that how Wentz has played, I don't know why they want him anyway. But there are going to be a lot of decent quarterbacks in the 2021 NFL draft, and like Charlie Campbell. He just updated his quarterback prospect rankings today, so you can definitely check that out. So, two more things. We have our survivor picks. So you can see who I've taken there on the screen, and if you're watching on YouTube, not on that list is I forget his name, Houston, right? Obviously, like if I would have taken Houston, that would have been a loss earlier in the year. But they're playing the Bengals. And they're not the most ideal pick. Like I'd rather have the Chiefs, but I've taken them already. I'd rather have the Ravens. I've taken them already. I'd rather have the Browns, but I've taken them already. So I'm going to take Houston, but I'm not very happy about it.
I think I have the Browns still open. So they're like the obvious pick. Cause they can beat the Jets in their sleep. I feel like, I say that now that they're probably going to lose like 20-0, but I'm pretty confident that Baker Mayfield will stay hot and do really well against the Jets. So if you have the Browns play them, I mean, if you're still alive at Survivor at this point, well done. I've been out for a very, very, very long time.
Yeah, no, same here. Back in week 1 when the Colts beat the Jaguars, and that was Jaguars' only win until this week when they beat the Bears. So we'll see about that. Also, the teaser of the week. So I was kind of looking at this. I think what I would go with right now is Rams plus 7.5, plus 7.5. And also the Steelers plus 7.5. That's what I would do right now. I think those teams keep the games close. So I don't know if you had any input.
Yeah, I like both of those. I would consider doing the Eagles and moving them to. I think it would go to 3.5 on the other side if I'm doing my math correctly. So they'd be 3.5 point underdogs. I know you're not going through as many key numbers, but I mean, I think they're going to win that one pretty easily. So having them as an underdog is just gravy at that point. So any of those 3 teams would be good.
Yeah. Or you could do a money line underdog parlay with the Falcons and the Jaguars, and maybe I don't know what $100 to pay out. It wouldn't be 1.3 million, but it would be a heavy amount, and that'll probably lose, but it'll be fun nonetheless. So yeah, that is it for this week. Do you have anything to plug?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Jacob Kamenker. I'll be tweeting out my picks. Hopefully, I did well last weekend, and then Sunday was not good. So hopefully we can fix Sunday a little bit, get it better there. And you can follow at SN_fantasy. Tweet the latest fantasy news, highlights, DFS lineups, rankings. If you're still alive in fantasy, it's championship week. So best of luck. But yeah, just find me in those places, and let's talk some football.
Sounds good. I'm at walterfootball.com. Tons of updates this week with the picks, updates on Thursday, Saturday, and of course Sunday morning with the final thoughts. Updated 2021 NFL mock draft. I'm excited to do it with the Jaguars on top for 1 week. So we'll see how that unfolds, even though it's going to be the same because the 2 quarterbacks at the top. But I'm going to work that tonight, and I'm going to have the mock draft updated Wednesday morning. So check that out then. Charlie Campbell has a ton of draft content for you to look at. So he's the best draft analyst in the business, I think. So definitely check out his content. And yeah, good luck. Like you said, good luck in your fantasy contests if you're in the finals, and good luck with your picks this week. So we're in crunch time. 2 weeks ago, we have our super contest entry. And I think if we do really well the final 2 weeks, we can finish in the money. So good luck to us as well. So that is it for this week. I'll talk to you later.
All right. Sounds good. Bye.